You are seen. You are worthy. You are not alone. The world loses one person to suicide every 40 seconds. Let's change the stats. Together, we can say not suicide. Not today.
Welcome to True Crime, Authors and Extraordinary People, the podcast where we bring two passions together. The show that gives new meaning to the old adage, truth is stranger than fiction, and reminding you that there is an extraordinary person in all of us. Here is your host, David McClam.
What's going on, everybody? And welcome to another episode of True Crime, Authors and Extraordinary People. Of course, I'm your man, David McClam. Hey, if you guys haven't already, make sure you follow us on all of our social media. One link to a link tree will get you every place you need to go pertaining to the show. All right, and as you heard coming in, if you are someone that is considering hurting yourself or someone else, or you know someone that's considering hurting themselves or someone else, please tune away from this episode. Dial 988. You can do this by text or phone. They will get you the help that you need. If no one has told you this today, let me be the first. You do matter, and I do need you to be here. And there is nothing that is worth your life. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope all of the fathers out there had an excellent Father's Day. Of course, there was no drop this weekend because I was gone doing Father's Day things. So that's why that was. I will try to get you guys an additional episode this week if I can. But today, it was important for me to come and update you on my episode that was about LaDonna Humphrey, because I have been getting some questions. There's been some comments made. So I kind of want to let you guys know what's going on with that and where we will go with it. All right, with that being said, I guess the first thing I want to point out to you guys is if you are someone that likes to watch the ratings of a podcast, you notice that mine has dropped by 2 points. This is no mean concern to me because the droppages are coming from the listeners of the Pretend podcast. There's been 2 of them, but there is one that goes from my podcast. Then if you go look at Extinguished, and if you go look at Deep Dark Secrets, then as you go look at Pretend, it is the same person. He is leaving 1-star comments, which makes no sense for half of them on my 3 shows. And then he is going and giving praise to Pretend podcast, leaving them 5 stars. I am not concerned about this because for the last 2.5 years, I carried a solid 5.0 rating. This is something that is very hard to do in the podcast world. So you guys know my content and you know what I do. And because of all of you guys, I carry that 5.0. So I am not concerned because I know where they are coming from, and you should not be concerned about it either. All right, so let me update you on this and what's going on. So yes, the Pretend podcast is still releasing their dirt and their lies. And let me clear a couple of things up that you guys may have heard. If not, I'm going to clear them up for the people that keeps coming over here, because Javier feels that it's funny that he takes my podcast and links it, and then he makes fun of it, and he says, oh, go listen to the last 15 minutes of this one, you'll love it. And every statement that's been made in direct response to LaDonna, especially on her side, he's made fun of it on TikTok and Twitter, and he's posted things with emojis and rolling faces. Let me just say this. I'm getting tired of people calling this guy a top-notch journalist because he's not. That's not what a top-notch journalist does. I went and researched that myself again, just to make sure I'm not wrong. And to kind of give you guys just this insight, because a lot of people say podcasters are not journalists. If you look at what the true meaning of a journalist is, we certainly are. A journalist is just somebody that brings or reports the news to you. So we are journalists, but there are also journalists with integrity. And that's what I am. So I went back and looked over some of my favorite documentaries from real journalists to see if I was right. In every one of those documentaries that I watched, every article by real journalists that I read did exactly what I told you a real journalist would do. See, a real journalist is out not to make money, but to put the truth out there. So they went to both sides. And for the side that did not show up, they told you, we reached out to so-and-so, but they declined to come on the show. So he's not a real journalist. He can make fun of that. I really don't care. It is true. There's a number of other people that tell you that is true. He is a dirt journalist. He is someone that wants to bring trauma and drama to people because he's making money. And I'd be the first one to say this off the top. In my honest opinion, I believe that palms are being greased to run this particular podcast. If you don't believe me, go search out any other episode he's ever done. This is why it's called a witch hunt. There's no other episode that a whole website's been taken out of, 2 different Facebook groups. Yes, he has a Reddit thread, but has not promoted it to the extent that he's promoted this one. So that's why it's a witch hunt. The couple things that I do want to clear up that he did make statements to that is not true because he thinks the world revolves around him and pretend podcasts. But I'm here to bust his bubble today and say that they did not. And he made a post days ago, I believe it was on Twitter, now known as X, that pretty much talked about me. He said that he's been getting this critical acclaim for this series, but everyone's not a fan. And he went on to reference a Deep Dark Secrets episode, which was called Will the Real Fetish Master Please Stand Up? In which he pretty much said that all we did through the whole episode was we just rambled on and about how it possibly couldn't have been her because of all of this. I have this on tape, folks. I asked Javier Leiva directly to his face on the phone call, and I said, do you know how websites work? His answer was no. Now, do I know how websites work? Yes, because unlike him, I have ran websites. I have built websites in my past life. I had several of them myself. I've used PHP boards. So nothing that we said in the episode was wrong or far-fetched. It was absolutely true. I've even told you the story of how my name got changed on some boards. So he put out there that we made that episode because of him. Then he went on to say that I had did an episode of my own on LaDonna Humphrey, which of course you guys already know that, which was my episode 32. Which was entitled Unraveling Deceit, Lies, Greed, and Jealousy, the Truth About LaDonna Humphrey. And he stated the same thing. He said, all I did was rambled on about, how I'm protecting my friend and all this, Yahoo, whatever he said. I'm paraphrasing that. And then he went on to say that this too was made in response to him. So let me clear this up for him, for you, and for all of his Kool-Aid drinkers that's out there. It is true that my episode 32 was made in direct response after he dropped his trailer. If you want proof of that, you can certainly look at the dates in which it was dropped. I recorded and released that episode on June 1st. I believe he launched this series or this season of Pretend Podcast on June the 7th. So yes, that is true. It was in direct response. However, he's dead wrong when it came to Deep Dark Secrets. That had nothing to do with the Pretend Podcast. It was done well before we knew Pretend Podcast was even going to come on. So let me give you those dates. We originally shot Will the Real Fetish Master Please Stand Up on April the 25th of this year. We didn't release it until May the 28th. Nothing to do with him. The reason why it did not get released at that point is because LaDonna, being the good-natured person that she is, still wanted to try to take the high road when it came to Alicia. She did not want to cause her any undue stress or what she felt would be public humiliation, even though her friends in her camp was telling her the opposite. So she decided not to launch it on that day. The original plan was we were shooting that and it was going to be released that Sunday. That's the original plan. But because she did not want it to be released, we did not up until May the 28th. So again, there you have it. Deep Dark Secrets was shot way before Javier Leiva even called anybody. Didn't even know what he was doing. Didn't really care who he was doing. Didn't even know who he was. He was nowhere on the radar when that was made. The only truth he told there was, yes, once again, I did make my episode in response to his. Because I wanted people to know what the truth was, since he is not presenting the truth at all. So what are we going to do? What is LaDonna going to do about this? I'm here to tell you that today. So I'm not going to make this too terribly long. I will tell you guys this, and he can make fun of this all he wants to, is out here. I've told you guys this before. I am a Christian, and my faith is my anchor. At all times before I do things, I sit down and I pray about it, and I have to consult, because if I didn't, things would come out in a way I did not want it to. I have to ask for guidance to be able to get through some of these things. And I went to an all men's breakfast at a church this past Saturday. And it did me some good because it always seems like that. I don't know what your faith and belief is, and I'm not here to preach you today, but mine is I believe deeply in God. And it always seems like he always gives us a message when we need it. And when I listen to this guy's message, it's exactly everything that's happening here. So he led us to the book of Isaiah chapter 60. If you ever read that book, that whole chapter of Isaiah is about people needing to be delivered, that they were looking more at what the problem is and what they're going through right now, other than looking at where God was trying to take them. From hearing this sermon and eating breakfast with these gentlemen, it gave me a whole different perspective on how we're going to go with this. The light always outshines the darkness. And that's exactly what this is. What I want to tell you is how we're going to do this is, at an appropriate time, there will be an answer to all of this. There will be the true side of this. I've always been told that there's three sides to the truth. There is your side, there is their side, and there is the truth. We're just going to bring you her side and the truth. When I say that I am a journalist with integrity and that I take seriously what I do, that's exactly what I do. So when we answer this, nothing that you will ever hear from any of us has come directly from us. We went seeking what the truth truly is. And if there is some truth to what Javier is laying down in his podcast, you'll be sure to know this. But I will say this again. He does not know LaDonna. He's never met her. I'm going to save it for whatever we do to tell you exactly how he got a hold of this situation, because he didn't find this on his own. Also, on top of all of that, again, I say money is involved. I would never persecute somebody this hard I did not know. And he has not seeked the truth. He's not shown you one piece of evidence from the true side. That is what we will do. So again, when there is an appropriate time, there will be an answer. It will not be here. We're going to continue business here on True Crime Authors Extraordinary People as usual. I won't say this will be the last statement I make on this, because whenever we do whatever it is that we're going to do, I will be sure to let you guys know here first that is interested. And before I leave you with these final thoughts, I do want to point this out. I do want to say thank you to Bookwormed as well as Patient Zero. Patient Zero and Bookwormed left comments on June 9th. And they both said that they went on and did their research. You can read the whole entire thing right on my page for Apple. But they said that they did their research and they determined that Alicia did lie in her book Strangle. I've never told you guys to take my word for it. I think I've always said, go out there and do the research on your own. Let me point this out. That is something that you have not heard yet from the other side. I've listened to every episode so far, except for the recent one. I haven't got to it yet, but he has not once said that. He has not once said, go do this research for yourself. Because you know what happens? Every time somebody has tried to do research on LaDonna Humphrey, they've come up with zero zilch. In my work, in my investigative work, just to let everybody know, to be transparent, because she agreed to it, so she knows, I ran a full background check on LaDonna myself. Nothing. Zero. And one of his followers came and said, oh, I looked everywhere for, on Google for LaDonna Humphrey, and there was nothing that was there. Well, then Alicia's lying behind came back and said, oh, you ain't going to find nothing, because LaDonna uses a service called EIN Presswire, and she pays them $100 and just to go in and they'll wipe anything negative that she has to say. I will tell you guys this tidbit. I won't save this until whatever it is that we respond with. I called EIN Presswire. I called twice. I called as somebody that was interested in their services, and then I called as somebody who was trying to get information because they're slandering an author. When I went to their website and I read about what they do, they don't do anything with hiding. First of all, you have to go through Google for that. And Google don't take anything down because they make money off of whatever it is you put up there word for word. If you look at EIN Presswire, they'll tell you that for $99.95, they will run one press release for you for 365 days. They run press releases. Let me also make sure that you understand that they're just not a little small company. They are partners and in partnership with some of the biggest names out there. CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, Target, the AP, Bing, Google. They're not going to ruin their relationship with any of these people because they're out here just because you get paid $100 just skimming things. So when I called as an author, I'm like, yeah, man, what you guys do? How do it work? And they told me flat out, they vet everything. Yes, it is true. I can write my own press release, but they go back and make sure that everything I put in there is true. So if I say I've read 19 books, they're going to make sure that I really wrote 19 books. When I call back a second time, just as somebody who's telling you, hey, I need information because I'm hearing that, this author is supposed to be using you to get all her stuff wiped. The dude was very appalled. He says, do you think we're dumb enough to do something like that where we would actually do this and ruin our relationship to people? He says, no. He goes, everything that is written, we vet. He says, there's been a number of things that we've never put out to publish because it was either full of lies or they couldn't vet it. And then he said this same thing. And this is what LaDonna told me too. Because I went back and asked her, why did she use EIN Press Wire, and told her what was written. The guy told me, he says, a lot of people, authors especially, use our service because of our integrity, because we do what we do and we are the most trustworthy in our field. Now, do they reach people? They reach a lot of people. Here's just one review. Have to say that the reach of EIN Press Wire has been formidable. Very impressed with the range of coverage from different news outlets afforded by the release of our press info. Additionally, I was very satisfied with the ability to correct errors once the press release was made available. Very useful and quick responses and action made for a couple of sighs of relief. I want you to hone in on what they said here when they said that they were very impressed with the range of coverage from different news outlets. So this means if EIN Press Wire is doing this, he puts ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, just to name your big four, in problems. She lied once again. Because once you tell a lie, you have to keep spinning the lie so that people believes it. So I'll leave you with this about LaDonna. And I want you guys to think about this very hard. All of you guys who listen to this show is very smart, and I think that a lot of you know what the law is. And if you don't know what the law is, you all have common sense. So I want to just leave you with this. And then the next time you hear me talk about this in depth, it will be with whatever answer we decide to give. The biggest catalyst of this whole thing is Anthony Christopher. He made a post that said this: for the last 31 years that LaDonna Humphrey has been harming people. Now, I want you guys to take a little trip me down memory lane. First of all, Anthony Christopher has not known LaDonna Humphrey for 31 years. Matter of fact, I'll go as far as to say I don't think anybody that he's pulling onto his show has known LaDonna for 31 years. Now, I don't know if you guys know LaDonna's age, but me and LaDonna is very close in age. 31 years ago, LaDonna would have been 19 years old. She's been doing this for 31 years. All the things they're accusing of means that she should have no friends, no allies, no colleagues. She shouldn't even be an author because if she's doing this for 31 years, this means that she was a child, because you're still a child at 19. I don't care what anybody tells you. You've been harming people's lives. 19 years old. Also, with some of the criminal things, they're trying to accuse her of burning down a house. They now have the Maura Murray case brought back into this, and we're going to shoot all kinds of holes in everything that they've said. They are bringing all these things back in, but you've been doing it since 19. That's the longest criminal spree I have heard of where nobody's been caught. Here's the other thing to think about. There are certain things you cannot do if you are a felon. Burning down a house is a felony. I think at some point we've heard that they're going to try to accuse her of murdering 3 people or 13 people, whatever it is. You can't murder somebody. That's definitely a felony. You should end up in jail. You cannot hold any type of governmental license with that kind of record. Now, they'll tell you on Pretend Podcast that LaDonna Humphrey says, quote unquote, that she is a private investigator. I'm here to tell you, LaDonna Humphrey is a real licensed private investigator. She holds a license to do so. You cannot hold a license being a criminal. The other thing is, if all of these things are so true, why do you wait till right now? She did the Maura Murray case years ago. And I didn't even know she was a part of that case till this all came out. She's been dealing with this way for 8 years. So if she's been hurting all these people for all these years, why is everybody just now sounding off right now? Don't tell me that Javier Leiva is just that good, because he is not. Common sense, you have to think of these things. They also accuse her of being a narcissist. I don't think they know what the word narcissist means. That's what these people are. And the one thing that LaDonna told me, which is true, and I've heard it from somebody else, but she reminded me of it, said this: for every accusation a narcissist makes, he or she is actually confessing. So what are they confessing? Also, some people say I'm not the one that should be doing this. I'm exactly the one. See, I went through this before. I told you guys I had a long 15-year YouTube career. This same thing happened to me. People tried to slander me. People sent pieces of my house. I was called all kinds of things racially. They stole pictures of my family. Because of the same reason doing this to LaDonna, they were jealous. LaDonna and I are what they call disruptors. We think outside the box. We create our own niche. And that's what I did with YouTube for 15 years. If you look at the way people shoot videos now, when they're talking to the camera, I was the original one who did that. I made a whole platform. I had people call me to train them on how do I talk so naturally to a camera when there is nobody in front of it. Also, I was the first person ever in the world to have a plastic instrument playing sponsored team. Yes, when the rock band came out, people got paid, whether it was in money, whether it was in equipment, to be on my team. I partnered with a guy from a company called Rock Band Parts. Well, people just couldn't stand that. I was doing something they couldn't do. Until one day, the guy who decided to send me pizzas decided he was going to hack and take over my YouTube account. And he had one of his friends, so he says, contact me by email. And I think somewhere to this day, I still have him. If I do, I'll be happy to post them. This guy went on with me about how, my YouTube channel was taken, and if I ever wanted it back, I would pay him X amount of money, or he was just going to hijack my channel. And at this time, he had removed all my programming or put it all on private or whatever he did, because he had these weird videos playing. And I asked the guy, says, I don't think you really understand who I am. And he goes, well, we know who you are, and are you going to pay us the money? And I said, look, ask your friend this question. How would he feel if I showed up at his house? And he says to me, well, what do you mean by that? You don't even know where he lives. You don't even know his name. I said, again, ask him how would he feel if I showed up at his house? I said, if you show back up here in 24 hours, I'll prove it to you. And he says, okay, if you can prove that to me, I'll talk to him. I'll meet you back here in 12 to 24 hours, and we'll see where this goes. And we'll release your YouTube account if you can prove this. I said, all right, fine. Dude met me back the next day. This time it was audio. And I said to him, are you ready? And he said, what? Not only did I tell him the dude's name, I told him where his house was, what state he lived in, the square footage of his house, the cars parked outside of his house, who his mama was, who his daddy was, who his brothers and sisters were, who his next available kin to his state was, what school he went to. And I said, now, do you believe any of this? Hold on a minute. So he goes back and confers with this guy, I'm sure sitting behind him. Your YouTube account will be released in an hour. Now, I don't do that kind of stuff anymore, people. Not sure I even remember how to. I walked away from that life. I never did anything illegal. But back in those days, I was very good with a keyboard and a mouse. I knew what to do. This is why I know how websites work. I knew how to get a hold and extract that kind of information. And this was long before Google and these websites that you go to. Even these sites you go to now, you've got to know a person's name or phone number or something. If you run my phone number, it comes up to my employer. My employer pays my phone bill. I don't do that anymore. Even though I used it for good, I was like, wow, this is way too powerful for one person to possess. What happens if I really get into a bind? I mean, computers has changed so much these days. You have to be a real hacktivist group now to know what you're doing and how to get into things, which they are and they do exist. Your biggest one out there is called Anonymous, where they go around and they deal with people that are that they feel is immoral. I mean, they shut down Ashley Madison for this very reason. They've shut down PlayStation or Sony's because they felt like they were suing somebody in there. So they exist. They just ain't me. I say all that to say that sometimes you have to be careful of who you tangle with or who you want to do things to, because you don't know what their mental psyche is. Nobody on this side is in the business of hurting anybody, or I don't got time to show up at anybody's houses. I'm sure that if I really wanted to find things out, I could, but that's not what this is about. This is about protecting LaDonna. So in closing, I'll leave you with this last thought about her. If she was the monster that they say that she is, if she was a felon, because that's what they're accusing her of, if she did go around destroying people's lives, there is one person that we know of that's on this earth that we cannot get around. That is the government. You cannot adopt children with records. LaDonna Humphrey has 7 total children. 5 of those 7 are adopted. Now, if you ever meet her and you say, how many children do I have? She will tell you, I have 7. You will never hear the words adopted from her. I'm only bringing this up to show you the kind of person that she is. Of those 5 kids that she adopted, what I'm about to tell you that she adopted those kids, all of them, so that they all stayed together. Apparently they were from the same family. They were going to split them up. LaDonna took them so that they would not be split up. A narcissist, an evil person, cannot and will not or does not have the capacity to open up their heart and their home to somebody else. These kids are happy. They're healthy. They're taken care of. I've seen them for myself. I've been a part of the whole, when her daughter went to prom, I saw the dress. I saw how happy they are. I've heard the kids in the background. I just want you guys to think about that before you pass sentence. Nobody else that's running this other podcast can say that. They don't have that record. They don't have PI licenses. They don't have adopted kids. Again, if LaDonna was all of this, she would have not got the license to adopt her children, because they vet people to the ends of the earth. I know. We did the adoption process before ourselves, my wife and I. I had home studies, our home studies. I had interviews. They had to interview my children that lives here now. Man, it's a long process. So, all right, guys, that's the update. I just want you guys to think about those things that I said to you about LaDonna. We hope LaDonna continues to do well. She has not been very well in her psyche since this happened. I'll just let you guys know that. We do everything we can to keep her calm and let her know that brighter days are coming, because lies never stand, but the truth always will prevail. All right, thank you guys for tuning in to this update. Again, when the time is right and appropriate, I will come back and let you guys know when and where we do decide to respond. We don't quite know how we're going to do that yet, but please know a response is coming. And when it does, I'm going to bring you everything that they're not telling you. So just hold on, because we're not quite done yet. All right, with that said, thank you for joining us today. I know you do have many choices in true crime and interview podcasts. I am grateful that for the last 2.5 years, I have been one of those that you have chosen. And remember that you have been listening to the only 3-faceted podcast of its kind. Be good to yourself and each other, and always remember, always stay humbled. An act of kindness can make someone's day. A little love and compassion can go a long way. And remember that there is an extraordinary person in all of us. I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Join us on social media. One link to the link tree has it all. Feel free to drop us a line at truecrimeandauthors@gmail.com. Cover art and logo designed by Arslan. Sound mixing and editing by David McClam. Intro script by Sophie Wild and David McClam. Theme music, Legendary, by New Alchemist. Introduction and ending credits by Jackie Voice. See you next time on True Crime, Authors, and Extraordinary People.